they should have to pay for, like the Otago Stadium, the Timaru Aquatic Complex, and the Nelson Performing Arts Centre. The problem with current mechanisms, such as complaints to the Ombudsman or voting out councils, is that they are retrospective, and by the time the elections come around, the council may have started the project and it becomes too late to pull out. We are looking at putting the horse, if you like, before the cart by giving ratepayers greater control over council decisions to invest in large and controversial projects, and especially projects beyond what we think of as core local government functions. Officials have now scoped the review and are consulting with stakeholders, including the local government forum. As a member of the local forum, Federated farmers will be having an input into the process, and I'm looking to Nick Clark to toughen it up a bit. I believe that the measures being considered in the review would go a considerable way towards achieving my objective of an efficient, cost-effective and responsive local government sector. I'm aware that Federated Farmers, quite rightly, is advocating for wider reform of local government funding, such as a move away from property-based rates to a greater focus on matching costs to benefits. At this stage, though, my priorities are to get Auckland's governance issues sorted out and then to get local government expenditure under control. So my focus is to get the costs under control and then to look at how those costs should be carried. Once I've dealt with these matters, I will welcome discussion on future priorities for local government reform, and it seems to me the Shand report from the previous government is a good place to start. There has been quite a lot of attention lately on what constitutes the core business of local government. It's amazing to me that, no one knows. And so officials are considering this, and we're linking it to their work on transparency, accountability and financial management. It seems to me that if we are going to set some priorities in local government, then we do need a definition of core services that we expect local governments to provide. I'm not suggesting that the government or the minister stop councils from undertaking activities, but what I am proposing is that with their what will be limited budgets, councils focus on core services and then actually seek a citizen support, possibly through a referendum, for activities that go beyond that core. I'm also concerned about the mandatory functions and associated costs being imposed on local government by central government. I'm thinking here of the mandatory consultation processes and auditing processes. In the past, too many obligations and costs have been passed on to local government by central government. The government is committed to reducing the costs that central government has imposed on local government and thereby ratepayers. I intend to examine whether central government has processes for making policy decisions that take full account of all the costs and benefits that are involved. My local government reform program ties in with my work as Minister for Regulatory Reform. The Minister of Finance and I have oversight of review of 11 major areas of regulation. These include review of the Building Act and the Resource Management Act. Significant progress has been made on both reviews. At the moment, as I've heard with the Minister of Agriculture, the Resource Management Act is causing unnecessary delays and high compliance costs that slow down our economic growth and the development of our infrastructure. We have a bill before the House which seeks to streamline and simplify the RMA somewhat. The bill makes a lot of small improvements to the Act, including the removing of frivolous, vexatious and anti-competitive objections, improving plan development and plan change processes, and reducing the compliance cost of consents. We think this will make a big difference for farmers and other businesses, but it's just a start. We need to do much better, and that's why we have a phase 2. We're starting to look at a host of more complex issues for farmers, perhaps the most important being water. Getting water right is critical to the long-term future of the primary sector, to tourism, and indeed to brand New Zealand. It will require input from all water users and a concerted effort from both local and national government, and it won't happen overnight. But we're confident that in conjunction with work already underway on managing water quality, abstraction and allocation, we can continue to improve the way water is managed and ensure that as a country we get the most value from it. In my role as Minister of Regulatory Reform, I actually wanted to be Minister of Anti-Red Tape, but apparently that didn't sound sophisticated enough. I see one of my jobs as changing the culture of government. I want regulators to give more thought than currently occurs to how regulation impacts on local government, on businesses and private citizens. I want government officials to be thinking about how much is this going to cost the taxpayer or the ratepayer, and is this regulation really the right approach, or are there smarter ways of achieving the same result? The quality of any new regulation is important, and so officials are working on a set of quality assurance measures that can be established within government, and I'm working on ministers to get them in place. This includes a government policy statement on regulation to set the principles which will hold us as a government to account. That's for the new legislation, but we also need to have a systematic approach to continually reviewing existing legislation to make sure that they're still relevant and implemented in the most efficient way. Again, officials are working on proposals for us to consider how we could get this continuous improvement of existing rules rather than just concentrating on the ones that we're passing. In addition, we're establishing a 2025 task force to investigate a number of important matters, including the reasons for the recent decline in New Zealand's productivity and performance, identifying superior institutions and policies in Australia and other more successful countries, and making credible recommendations on the steps needed to close the income gap with Australia by 2025. That's a result of our confidence and supply agreement, and my aim here is to provide some focus and attention within the New Zealand political scene on the importance of productivity and economic growth and prosperity, rather than this continual focus on distribution of what we've got. We tend to spend so little time thinking about how to bake a bigger cake, and all the time looking at the little cake that we've got and saying, oh, where's my bit? We're also exploring the concept of a New Zealand Productivity Commission associated with Australia's Productivity Commission in order to support the goals of higher productivity growth and improvements in the quality of regulation. And indeed, I've met with Gary Banks, the head of the Productivity Commission in Australia, and he's very positive for working with us. So you can see that much work is underway to get our economy growing, and New Zealand is thankfully not going down the path of some other countries pursuing more heavier regulation and heavier subsidies. Of course, if we would do that, that would lead to a farmer sector which is over-regulated, inefficient, and drifts further and further behind what is internationally competitive. We want to be heading into the other direction. We want New Zealand farmers to continue to be innovative, sustainable, and profitable. My focus is to lighten the load of government on your back so the world's best farmers can actually do what they do best, generate the prosperity that you and our country so desperately yearn for. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak to you, and I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.